Welcome to the deep dive. We dig into the source material to pull out these, well, often pretty incredible stories from Hollywood history. And today we're looking at a career arc that's just, wow. Incredibly fast on the way up and almost brutally short. We're tracing the life of Jeff Richards, a name maybe not everyone remembers instantly, but a guy who rocketed from minor league baseball to winning a Golden Globe in, less than 5 years?
That's right. It's an astonishingly quick rise.
Only to then pretty much vanish.
Yeah.
Just disappear into, well, quiet obscurity almost right after hitting that peak.
It really is a classic story, in a way, about the mid-century Hollywood studio machine, what it could do, and how fast it could chew people up. Our sources give us this really detailed picture of Richard Mansfield Taylor. This was his birth name, of course.
Right.
And it tracks him from being this disciplined WWII vet, then a professional athlete, someone celebrated for that, then suddenly a major movie star in 1954, winning awards, and then finally ending up living quietly, actually, on disability.
And that journey, that whole arc from the absolute height of promise to, well, total silence professionally, that's what we're diving into today. It's not just what happened, but maybe why it happened.
Exactly. Why did the star-making machinery, which seemed to work so perfectly for him initially, fail so spectacularly in his case?
So the basics, just to set the scene. He was born Richard Mansfield Taylor, November 1st, 1924, up in Portland, Oregon. And he died July 28th, 1989. He was only 64.
Yeah, relatively young.
And his working life, really two distinct parts. Baseball player, 1946 to 49, then actor, starting around 48, going through to 66.
And that pivotal year, the one everything seems to hinge on, is 1954. That's 7 Brides for 7 Brothers.
Your big one.
Absolutely. But that whole shift from athlete to actor, it's really driven by a couple of key things, a major physical injury and then a complete professional rebranding.
Okay, so let's start there. Back when he was still Richard Taylor and his life was all about sports.
Right, so he starts out as Richard Mansfield Taylor. And when he first dips his toes into acting, he actually tries using versions of his real name.
Dick Taylor, Richard Taylor. Yeah, the sources mention that. Trying to build his own brand, maybe, before the studio got involved.
Could be. It's pretty standard, but it shows maybe an initial attempt to control. But before even thinking about acting names, there was the military.
Ah, yes, World War II. He joined the Navy, served right through till 1946.
And you really can't underestimate how important that was for guys entering Hollywood right after the war. It gave them this discipline, physical fitness, obviously, but also this sort of clean-cut, marketable image.
Yeah.
Studios loved that post-war vibe. He kind of had the look and the bearing down before he even thought about acting seriously.
And he took that physical foundation straight into pro sports, didn't he?
Straight in. Professional baseball, playing shortstop from 46 to 49.
And this wasn't just some local league, right? He played for the Portland Beavers for a year. That's Pacific Coast League, which was a pretty big deal back then. Almost major league level for some teams.
Yeah.
Exactly. High-level stuff. Then he moved on to the Salem Senators. So this is crucial context because so much of his later Hollywood career was built on him being convincingly athletic. He wasn't faking it.
It was the real deal.
He absolutely was. And there's a great little detail in the source material about how Hollywood later used that. When he got his first proper credited role in Kill the Umpire back in 1950,
Right.
the publicity machine made a big point of saying, hey, this guy played for Salem in the Western League. They were selling his authenticity, in a town full of people pretending he actually had been a pro ball player.
Which makes the next part almost tragically ironic, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Because the very thing that made him marketable later on, his athleticism, is what ended that first career.
The injury. Tore a ligament, the sources say.
Yeah. And it wasn't minor. It was serious enough that he had to completely give up professional baseball. Done.
Just like that.
Just like that, which basically forced him, or at least pushed him very strongly, towards Hollywood. It's like fate just slammed one door and shoved him towards another.
It's almost too neat, isn't it? Like a movie plot itself.
It really is. And think about the shift mentally. He's coming from this world of sports clear rules. You succeed or fail based on performance.
Yeah. Hit the ball, run the bases. Measurable.
Exactly. And suddenly he's thrown into the much more subjective, unpredictable world of casting calls and screen tests, all because his body let him down in that first career.
And as you hinted, that initial physical vulnerability, it seems like it might come back later in the story.
It really hangs over the whole narrative, I think. We'll definitely circle back to that. But for now, yeah, he's injured, his baseball dream is over, and he's heading to Hollywood looking for, well, something else.
Okay, so he gets to Hollywood around 1948, 1950, still using his real name, Richard Taylor, and it sounds like it was a real grind at
Oh,
first.
absolutely. The sources paint a picture of him just hustling, scrambling for anything he could get, mostly these uncredited bit parts, blink and you miss in roles.
And he was setting up all the major studios, wasn't he? Warner Brothers.
Yep, Warner Bros. He pops up uncredited in films like The Big Punch, Johnny Belinda, even Fighter Squadron, although apparently his scenes got cut from that one.
Ouch. A taste of Hollywood reality right there.
Definitely. And then things like The Girl from Jones Beach. So, real mix of stuff.
Then over at 20th Century Fox, too.
Same story. Little uncredited bits in Mother's a Freshman. Cheaper by the dozen. It wasn't about artistic expression at this point, It was about getting seen, getting experience on camera, learning the ropes, probably waiting tables on the side, just sheer persistence.
But eventually someone noticed that athletic background again, right?
Exactly. His first credited role finally comes in 1950. Columbia Pictures, Kill the Umpire. And what role do they give him? Bob Landon, a baseball player.
Typecasting, but in a good way for him at this stage.
Totally. It's like Hollywood suddenly went, oh, wait a minute. This guy isn't just another handsome face. He actually looks and moves like an athlete because he was one.
And that's the moment the biggest player in town takes notice. MGM.
That seems to be the trigger. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer offers him a screen test. They like what they see, they sign him, and then bam, the studio machine kicks into high gear.
The name change.
Instantly. Richard Taylor. Too plain. Dick Taylor. Too informal, maybe.
Huh.
They decide he needs something stronger, something more marketable. And he becomes Jeff Richards.
It really underlines the power they had, doesn't it? They weren't just employing him, they were creating a product.
Absolutely. It was a total branding exercise. His name, his image, his career path, it was all being designed and managed by MGM now. He was essentially studio property. They saw this clean-cut, athletic, kind of wholesome American ideal.
Yeah.
Perfect for the 50s, and they gave him the name to match.
So, new name, big studio contract, but it wasn't overnight stardom, was it?
No. MGM was strategic. They didn't just throw him into the deep end. They kept building momentum, using him in small parts, often uncredited again, even after signing him.
Still leveraging that physique, probably.
Definitely. You see him in things like The Strip, The Tall Target, The People Against O'Hara, even the huge Hollywood film, The Bad and the Beautiful.
Yeah.
He's in there somewhere, uncredited.
They're testing the waters, grooming him.
Precisely. And then you start to see the progression. He gets a credited part, again, as a baseball player, in Angels in the Outfield.
Makes sense. Stick with what works.
Right. And then slightly bigger parts, more visible roles, in Battle Circus and Code 2, where he played a character named Harry Winlon. You could almost feel the studio thinking, okay, he's getting there. We're finding the right spot for him.
And there were signs even earlier that they had big plans, right? Mention of him being considered for a specific role.
Yeah, that's a fascinating detail. Apparently, as early as 1951, he was being seriously considered to play Frank Merriwell.
Wow, Frank Merriwell, the fictional All-American Yale athlete. That's iconic.
Exactly. A hugely popular, squeaky clean literary hero known for sports and adventure. If MGM was thinking of him for that, it shows massive confidence. They saw him as potential leading man material, embodying that perfect American archetype.
It really was like a signal flare, wasn't it? Like, get ready, Jeff Richards is coming.
It totally was. The grind was paying off, the rebranding was complete, and the stage was absolutely set for his big moment.
Okay, so 1954 rolls around. He's done the groundwork. MGM believes in him. What were the first signs things were really taking off?
Well, early in 54, he gets a couple of really solid roles. Third billing, again as a ball player in Big Leaguer, playing Adam Polachek.
Still playing baseball players?
Still playing baseball players. They really leaned into that. And then another decent part in a film called Seagulls Over Sorrento. These weren't leads, but they were significant steps up, proving he could handle more screen time, hold his own.
Kind of like the final audition before the main event.
Exactly. And then came the main event. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, 1954.
This was the one.
This was absolutely the one. And he wasn't just one of the brothers buried in the ensemble. He was Benjamin Pondopy. That's the third lead, right after the big stars, Hired Keel and Jane Powell.
A major role in a massive film.
Huge. You really can't overstate how big Seven Brides was. It was this giant, colorful, energetic musical that just exploded at the box office. MGM needed a hit like that, and they got it.
And it made him instantly recognizable, didn't it?
Overnight. The film was a phenomenon, critically and commercially. Audiences loved it. And Jeff Richards, as one of the main brothers, was suddenly a familiar face worldwide. His name was out there.
And the industry recognition followed pretty quickly, too. The Golden Globe.
Yep, the very next year, 1955, he wins the Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer Male. Actually, he tied.
Oh, who with?
He shared it with George Nader and Joe Adams, two other actors the industry was betting on at the time. So this wasn't just some minor award. It was the Hollywood Foreign Press basically saying these guys are the future.
Official stamp of approval, marked for stardom.
Absolutely. And this wasn't just critics talking. The studio brass were fully committed. We've got that quote from Dor Sherry, the head of MGM at the time.
Right. What did he say?
Sherry, who was under huge pressure, by the way, to find new stars as the old guard was aging or leaving. He said Richards had, quote, tremendous personal charm and looks like a great bet to become a star based on his reception till now.
Wow, a great bet. That's strong language from the studio head.
It's huge. You have to understand the context. MGM's dominance was starting to slip. Television was hitting hard. The old studio model was cracking. Sherry desperately needed new, bankable leading men who didn't cost a fortune like the Gables and Tracys.
So when he calls Richards a great bet, it's not just praise, it's a statement of financial strategy.
Exactly. He's basically announcing, we think we found one of our answers. This guy is going to be a pillar for MGM going forward. They saw him potentially filling that athletic, charming, maybe Rock Hudson-esque kind of role.
The hype must have been immense around him then.
Oh, deafening. Golden Globe winner, studio chief backing him publicly. MGM was ready to pour resources into making Jeff Richards the next big thing.
It sounds like the absolute pinnacle. He'd arrived.
He had. But as we often see in these stories, sometimes the moment you reach the peak is exactly when the ground starts to crumble beneath you.
Okay, so the hype is real. MGM is all in. What happens next? They need to capitalize, right? Find him starring roles.
That was the plan. But right away, you start to see some wobbles. The studio seems a bit unsure exactly what to do with him. They start announcing him for projects, big projects.
Yeah.
He's announced as the star of something called O'Kelly's Eclipse. Never happened. Vanished.
Okay.
Then, significantly, he's announced for Forbidden Planet.
Wow, the sci-fi classic. That would have been huge.
Huge. A major, effects-driven, genre-defining film. But he's not in the final movie. He was announced, then gone.
Why? Any idea? Did the part change, or did they get cold feet about him in the sci-fi?
It's hard to say for sure from the sources. Could be the role evolved. Could be the studio thought, maybe let's stick to what we know. They might have been hesitant to risk him in something so different from the, athletic, outdoorsy type they'd built him as.
Interesting. So uncertainty already creeping in.
Seems like it. And there was another one mentioned, Bar Sinister. He was supposed to star in that alongside Roger Moore, who was also on the rise.
Roger Moore, okay.
Yeah. But again, that film just didn't get made. It fell through. So you have this pattern. Announcement, excitement, then nothing.
That's got to be frustrating for an actor. But it really points to the studio maybe not having a clear, confident plan for him, doesn't it? Despite Sherry's big talk.
I think that's exactly right. They knew they had a hot commodity after Seven Brides, but they seemed unsure how to package it for sustained success. They needed a guaranteed hit for him right after that breakout, and they seemed hesitant to pull the trigger on these specific projects.
But they couldn't just wait around. The momentum from Seven Brides would fade.
Precisely. So they shifted gears and fast-tracked him into lead or starring roles between 1955 and 1956. This was it. Put up or shut up time. Can Jeff Richards carry a movie?
What were the films?
Well, first, a pretty solid supporting role in a Clark Gable film, Many Rivers to Cross. Okay, good exposure. But then came the big tests. First, a Western, The Marauders, in 1955. He's the hero, Corey Everett, opposite the great villain actor Dan Duryea.
Okay, playing the hero in a Western makes sense for his type.
Then they tried to show his range. Lead role in a comedy, It's a Dog's Life, also 55, playing a character named Patch McGill.
The comedy lead, okay, stretching him a bit.
And finally, back to musicals. But this time, as one of the main male leads in the big-budget all-star remake, The Opposite Sex in 56, playing Buck Winston.
So Western hero, comedy lead, musical lead, they really threw him into different genres to see what would stick. Serious investment from MGM.
Absolutely. They weren't messing around. They needed this to work. They needed him to become a reliable box office draw. Disaster. This is the crux of the whole story. The brutal financial reality. Those 3 films where he had the starring or major co-starring role, The Marauders, It's a Dog's Life, and The Opposite Sex, every single one of them lost money for the studio.
Wow, all 3.
All 3. And we're not talking small amounts, especially relative to their budgets in the mid-50s. It's Dog's Life is specifically called out in our sources as a box office flop. The other two also ended up in the red.
3 strikes and you're out, basically.
In the studio system of that era, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially for a new star they were trying to build. Remember Doris Sherry's position? He was already fighting to keep MGM profitable. He couldn't afford expensive failures like this.
So Sherry's great bet didn't pay off.
Not even close. It backfired spectacularly, and the reaction was swift and decisive.
How did it happen? Did they just stop calling him?
It sounds like it was pretty abrupt. The sources say MGM began to lose enthusiasm for Richards, which is probably a classic Hollywood understatement for they pulled the plug.
The enthusiasm vanished overnight.
Pretty much. All that hype, all that investment, gone. Think about the timeline. He was the Golden Globe in early '55. By April 1957, less than 3 years later, he gets his release from his MGM contract.
That's incredibly fast.
It's stunningly fast. The contract that was supposed to make him a superstar was suddenly worthless. He was cut loose, back on his own.
So the lesson here really is charisma, awards, studio backing. None of it mattered if the films didn't make money.
That's the bottom line, especially in the increasingly precarious financial climate of the mid-50s studios. 3 consecutive losses. That was a death sentence for a rising star's trajectory at a major studio. The machine giveth and the machine taketh away very, very quickly.
Okay, so MGM drops him in April '57. What does an actor do then? Especially one who is just being groomed for major startup.
Well, the classic path for actors whose film careers stalled in that era was television. And that's exactly where Richards heads. He has to keep working.
Right, pay the bills.
Exactly. So he immediately starts doing TV guest appearances. Anthology shows are big then. He pops up in the web in an episode of Alfred Hitchcock's Suspicion.
Yeah.
Things like that. Just trying to stay visible, stay working.
It's interesting, though, because didn't he have one more MGM film come out right around then?
He did, yeah. It's a slightly odd overlap. He had a minor supporting role in a comedy called Don't Go Near the Water, which actually came out in late 1957 and was a pretty big hit for MGM.
So he's technically still on screen in a successful movie from the studio that just let him go while he's scrambling for TV gigs. Strange timing.
Very strange.
Yeah.
A bit of coda to his MGM period, I guess. But the future wasn't in supporting roles in their films anymore. It had to be somewhere else.
And he did land something significant on TV, didn't he? His own series.
He did. That was the next big attempt to sort of relaunch himself. In 1958, he gets the title role in an NBC Western series called Jefferson Drum.
Jefferson Drum. Okay, what was the premise?
He played a crusading newspaper editor in the Old West. Jefferson Drum had a young actor named Eugene Martin playing his son. It sounded promising.
Westerns were huge on TV then. Should have been a good fit for him physically.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? He looked the part. But the show just didn't catch on. It was canceled after only 26 episodes, ran across parts of 2 seasons, but basically it lasted about a year.
Another failure. That's rough. It's like he couldn't catch a break after those MGM films flopped.
It really seems that way. It's like Hollywood, both big screen and small screen, was sending him a pretty clear message. Whatever that star quality was in Seven Brides, it wasn't translating into audiences consistently choosing to watch him.
So after the TV show gets canceled, what's next? Back to guest spots.
Guest spots, yeah. But also another attempt at finding stability in films, this time with an independent production company. In 1959, he stars in a sort of B-movie adventure film called Island of Lost Women. Okay, maybe not high art, but it's a lead role.
Right.
And off the back of that, he signs what sounds like a lifeline. A 5-year contract with a company called Jaguar Productions.
5 years? That sounds significant.
It sounds amazing. The deal was supposedly for him to make 2 films per year for them. That's 10 films guaranteed over 5 years. For an actor in his position, recently dropped by a major studio, his TV series canceled. That kind of multi-picture deal is gold. It means security, planning, a chance to rebuild.
Okay, so this could be the comeback, a new home base away from the pressures of MGM.
That's what it looked like on paper. But then comes the really crushing detail from the sources.
Uh-oh.
Despite signing that 5-year, 10-picture deal with Jaguar Productions, Jeff Richards made exactly 0 further films for them.
None. The whole deal just evaporated.
Completely. It never happened. And that, perhaps more than anything, shows just how difficult his situation was.
Why would that happen? They signed him.
Well, signing is one thing. Actually getting the films financed and distributed is another. It strongly suggests that even with a contract in place, Jaguar couldn't secure the funding or distribution needed to make those films with him in the lead. His track record, those 3 MGM flops, must have cast a really long shadow. Producers, financiers, distributors, they likely looked at the numbers and said, nope, too risky, we can't back 5 years of films starring this guy. His bankability was just shot.
Wow, so even the escape route was blocked. That's incredibly tough.
It really paints a picture of an industry closing ranks. Once you were perceived as box office poison, it was incredibly hard to get back in, especially in a leading capacity.
So inevitably, it's back to more television guest work.
Pretty much. He kept working through the early 60s. Shows like Behind Closed Doors, Alcoa Theater, Adventures in Paradise, and other popular Western Laramie. He actually had a pretty memorable guest role on Rawhide in 1961. Played a character named Jubal Evans in an episode called Incident of His Brother's Keeper. Apparently quite a physical role, showing he still had that presence.
But the film roles, they were drying up.
Completely. His last actual lead role in a feature film was in 1960, an underwater adventure thing called The Secret of the Purple Reef.
Doesn't sound like a blockbuster.
Probably not. After that, it was just scraping by with smaller film parts. Until the very last one. His final screen appearance ever was a small role in a 1966 Western called Waco, playing a character named Callan.
1966, so he would have been, what, 42?
Exactly, just 42 years old. And his acting career, the one that had burned so brightly just a decade earlier, was completely over. He just stopped, walked away.
And it's that final act, the complete contrast to the Hollywood life. That's maybe the most startling part of the story.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the turbulence of his career peak seemed to spill over into his personal life around the same time.
The marriages.
Exactly. He had two very short-lived marriages right in the middle of that mid-50s whirlwind. First to Shirley Saber in 1954, the year of 7 brides. But they divorced just a year later in 55.
Right when the Golden Globe win happened and the pressure was probably mounting.
Precisely. Then he immediately remarries in 1955 to a woman named Vicki Flaxman.
Okay.
They did have a child together, a son, born in 1957. Which, if you think about the timing...
That's the exact year MGM released him from his contract.
The exact year. So, becoming a father amidst that massive career upheaval. But that marriage didn't last either. They divorced in 1959.
It really speaks to the immense pressure he must have been under, doesn't it? The studio demands, the public image, the financial failures.
Absolutely. Trying to maintain a stable private life while your professional world is first rocketing up and then crashing down, it must have been incredibly difficult. It often takes a toll.
And there's a small note about Vicki Flaxman later marrying another actor.
Yeah, just a small detail. The sources include she later married Van Williams, who was known for playing the Green Hornet on TV, just one of those little Hollywood connections, linking her back to the world Richards was about to leave entirely.
And that departure, it was total, wasn't it? After that last role in Waco in 1966.
Completely total. He didn't just stop getting lead roles. He stopped acting altogether. He retired. Walked away from the business entirely at age 42.
And where did he go? What did he do?
He deliberately got out of the Hollywood orbit, moved away, ended up in San Bernardino County. And this is where the contrast becomes just incredibly stark. The source material is very clear about his final decades. He lived in a trailer park. And for the rest of his life, he collected disability payments.
From Golden Globe winner, MGM's Great Bet, to living in a trailer park on disability. That's quite a fall.
It's staggering, isn't it? And it forces us to connect the dots right back to the beginning of his story.
The baseball injury.
Exactly. Here's a man whose entire public persona, both as an athlete and then as an actor in westerns and action roles, was defined by his physicality, his athletic build.
Right. He was always the strong, capable type on screen.
And yet he ends his public life at 42, needing permanent disability assistance. The shift is just profound. From the bright lights of Hollywood premieres to the quiet isolation of a trailer park, unable to work.
It really emphasizes how fragile a career built on physical typecasting can be, doesn't it?
It does. And while our sources don't specify the exact medical condition that led to the disability,
You can't help but wonder.
you absolutely have to wonder about that original ligament tear. Was it something that caused degenerative issues later on? Did the years of stunt work, riding horses, doing action sequences for films like The Marauders or even his TV work? Did that exacerbate the old injury or cause new ones?
Could the very thing that made him a viable actor, his willingness to do physical roles, have contributed to his early retirement?
It seems entirely plausible, doesn't it? The body that was his ticket into acting after his baseball career ended might have ultimately been the reason his acting career also had to end prematurely. He basically traded one physically demanding career that broke down for another, possibly accelerating the damage.
So he had this incredibly brief, intense peak as an actor, maybe 3 or 4 years in the spotlight.
sandwiched between two careers, potentially cut short by physical limitations, and then he just lived out the last 23 years of his life in complete obscurity.
Wow.
Yeah. He died quietly, July 28, 1989, age 64. The cause was listed as acute respiratory failure. He's buried at Riverside National Cemetery. A very quiet end to a life that had, for a brief moment, been incredibly public and full of Hollywood promise. Hashtag outro.
So wrapping up this deep dive on Jeff Richards, it's just such a powerful story, isn't it? More than just a biography. It feels like a case study in just how volatile that mid-century Hollywood system could be.
Absolutely. You've got this incredibly compressed timeline. That window from, say, 1954 with Seven Brides to 1957 when he's released by MGM, it contains the entire rise and fall.
Yeah, from pro athlete to breakthrough star, Golden Globe winner, and then bam, immediate collapse, driven almost entirely by those three films losing money back to back.
The brutal illustration of the gap between Hollywood hype, the most promising newcomer buzz, and the cold, hard reality of career sustainability back then.
Doris Sherry, the studio head, might have seen tremendous personal charm, but when the box office receipts came in red,
Charm became irrelevant very quickly. The financial losses were immediate, the studio's loss of enthusiasm was total, and the plug was pulled. Talent, promise. None of it mattered against the bottom line.
And that financial failure clearly had long-lasting consequences, didn't it? Even when he tried to rebuild independently.
Oh, yeah. That Jaguar Productions deal falling through is maybe the clearest sign. Signing a 5-year contract meant nothing because nobody was willing to actually finance films with him anymore. He was tagged as a flop, and that label just stuck, forcing him out of the industry so young.
Which brings us back, inevitably, to that final lingering question. We know the money problems killed his MGM career, but what about his physical health?
Exactly. That's the provocative thought, isn't it? We started with the baseball injury that pushed him into acting. We ended with him living on disability after retiring from acting at just 42.
So the question you're left with is, how much did the physical demands of the very roles he was typecast in the Westerns, the action, the stuff that relied on his athletic look?
How much did that contribute to the physical breakdown that led to the disability and the early retirement? Did the industry not only break his bankability, but also, inadvertently or not, contribute to breaking him physically?
It adds another layer of tragedy, doesn't it? Suggests maybe a synergy between the career failure and the physical decline. We can't know for sure, but looking at the whole arc, it's hard not to wonder. A really potent question to leave our listeners with.